Happy Easter, 7th grade. I hope everyone had a good one. On Google Classroom, I'm just going to refer to this week as Easter week, so kind of keeps things clear in my head which week of e-learning we're on. Hopefully you guys are working on your activity bingo for bonus and turn those activities in to Mr. H for him to track, or Mrs. Schultz is the one that's taking care of activity bingo, so Mr. H or Mrs. Schultz. I've already done a few things just to show you what I've been working on. I've done some kindness rocks. I've made my masterpiece, which I learned how to do on Google Classroom. I love my mandala, so that's a cool project if you want to do that. And I've done other things like I've posted some Christian messages and things like that. I've done 5 of them on my way. Another thing, quick announcement, is the Hunger Games is attached if you want to read aloud. So I've been doing read alouds of the Hunger Games for you guys if you want some AR points. It's one of my favorite books. All right, on to science. This week we are moving away from arthropods. That was a big phyla, even though we covered in a week, and that's just sort of how e-learning is going to go. We're just going to kind of go probably a phyla a week. And we're going to move on to echinoderms this week. The pretty sea stars and sea urchins and sand dollars that I love to collect when I'm in Florida that I missed this year. Hopefully we'll go this summer. But hopefully you guys find them pretty fascinating, but they're pretty simple creatures, and there's not that many different kinds like the arthropods. So I'm thinking today, Monday, notes, Tuesday a video, Thursday a video, and then Friday, I'm just going to call that a catch-up day for you, because some of you still got to get in those bug projects and get your science grade up to where it needs to be. When you're done with these notes, please share them with me so you can get your note grade as well. So let's get to it.
All right, we are going to begin with the phylum Echinoderms. So the first thing we always talk about with each phyla is what makes them. What makes an echinoderm an echinoderm? What are their characteristics? The first most notable characteristic of echinoderms comes straight from their name. They have spiny skin. Echino means hedgehog, and if you think about sea urchins and sea stars, they have relatively spiky skin, like a hedgehog. And derm means skin. If you've heard of the word epidermis, or you go to a dermatologist, especially if you've had acne issues or any skin issues, rashes or things like that, you go see a dermatologist. They treat your skin, a scientist of the skin. So derm means skin, echinoderms, spiny skin. Other characteristics that are more scientific that make echinoderms, to get into this phylum, is you need to have an endoskeleton. Endo, again, another root or prefix, means inside. So their skeletons are inside of them, not like the arthropods where their skeletons were on the outside. So there's that word endo. And then radial symmetry. If you remember right, radial symmetry simply meant that it has a center point and it radiates out from there. So there are those characteristics. One that is unique to the echinoderm phylum is their water vascular system. And this is, of course, because they live in water their whole lives. So they have this, instead of, what we have digestive systems and respiratory systems, they have a water vascular system that is unique to them. And they have these tube feet on the bottom. And let me see if I can. Yeah, the tube feet down there on the bottom that can fill with fluids and pump fluid throughout their bodies. And there's 3 jobs that this water vascular system performs on the sea stars and any of the echinoderms. They carry oxygen and food throughout their body, just sort of like our circulatory system would do and our digestive system would do. And it also helps them remove waste. And then lastly, which is weird to think about, it also helps them move. So not does it only help them breathe, eat, and get rid of waste, it helps them move. So this water vascular system is very important to the echinoderm's life. Okay, so here we're going to get a little bit closer look into the water vascular system. And if you were dissecting these sea stars, one of the first body parts you'd be instructed to find would be the madreporite, and that is where water comes in and out of, also through these little tube feet right here underneath. So, and it just travels through this system that goes to each arm, and there's a little ring canal right here as well. So water can radiate to each part. Okay, and the other feature or characteristic that is very unique to the Echinoderm phylum are tube feet. That would be another structure you would find, and it is actually would be on the underside of that sea star right there that we see. But they use these tube feet underneath to move, obviously, but they also use it to get food. So it can actually create a strong suction and to pry open the shells of clams, and then they can actually, and we'll talk about how they eat later, so we'll get to that in a minute. But this little ampulla over here fills with water, and they can fill with water and empty water. It's just sort of like a syringe would work. All right, Roman numeral 2, examples. Now, you don't have to find pictures of every single kind of echinoderm, but I do want you to write down the words, okay? I just like to look at the visuals, but one of my favorites that we don't even talk about very often when we talk about echinoderms are the sea lilies, and they're beautiful underwater, and the feather stars. And then, of course, you have sea stars, sand dollars, and sea urchins. And we will be watching a video on the sea cucumber, and those things are just bizarre animals, but fun to learn about, I think. Roman numeral 3, their diet, which is kind of weird. We don't really think about sea stars and sand dollars and urchins eating, but they are indeed carnivores, and they will eat clams, barnacles, coral, and even small fish. And they will supplement that diet with some algae, so I guess you could almost count them as omnivores, but mostly we think of them as carnivores, meaning eating meat. They use their tube feet to draw food up to their mouth, but if it's something that they've got to really fight or work at to get, they will use those tube feet to pry open a shell. And then the most unique and gross part, but yet the part that we always love when it gets a little gory, they will take their stomach out. On the underside of them, they have an opening, a little hole on the underside, and they will take their stomach and push it out of their mouth area and into the shell of the clam and start secreting their digestive enzymes, which means it's breaking down the clam, and then will begin to suck in the nutrients. So they'll eat that thing, sort of dissolve it, I don't know, alive? I don't know, inserting its stomach into it. I just think it's a bizarre way to eat your food. Can you imagine taking your stomach, inserting it onto your meat tray, and start breaking it down and then bringing it to your mouth? I don't know. Kind of cool. They do have some predators since they can get up close to the seashore, and when the tides get low, birds will come and eat them. Sea otters will die for them, and of course humans. And we don't always eat them, but boy do we like to collect them, and I'm guilty of that one myself. All right, Roman numeral 4, we've got a big one here, reproduction. We'll probably watch a video on reproduction as well. And their life cycle, they have 3 stages: the egg, the larva, and the adult. And as you can imagine, as in most sea life, millions of eggs are released each year. And the larva doesn't look like the adults, so it goes under some type of metamorphosis, and it can just kind of drift in the currents for a while, and then it becomes the adult sea star. And you can see what a baby looks like down there in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, what is very cool about sea stars is they are able to actually regenerate part of their arms. If their arm is cut off, they can actually produce a whole new organism from one of their rays, from differing abilities. Different species have differing abilities. But, you know, maybe there is a little truth to SpongeBob. If Patrick loses a limb, we can make a new Patrick. We went fast over that slide, so just push pause and go back and then copy it down if you need to. Roman numeral 5, habitat. They are all marine, and if you look at that picture down there of that really cool sea urchin, I have one of those in my classroom. I wish you normally put it out at my desk at this time of year so kids can see it, but that's like one of my favorite shells I have. They live in cold and warm waters, but mostly we think of them living in warm waters, and they usually live around coral reefs, but some of them do live in the open sandy areas. Another tidbit of information that you need to be aware of, even though they are sometimes referred to as starfish, they are not fish. They are echinoderms. We will be learning about fish next unit, so don't call them starfish, call them sea stars. I've heard sea stars get very offended if you call them starfish. No, not really. All right, and then wrap it up with the legend of the sand dollar, and we've talked about that in several rotation labs, and how the sand dollar is just a beautiful Christian symbol, and man, how cool is it that it is Easter time, and that we see some of the Easter symbolism on that sand dollar. Okay, we see that there are 4 holes that represent the nails that put Jesus on the cross, and then the 5th hole is for the spear that was stabbed into his side, to make sure Jesus had indeed died. And if you crack open the shell, then you would see all the doves that come out of the shell. And of course you see the beautiful Easter lily right there in the center of the sand dollar. On the other side is the poinsettia, they say, and then there's Christmas bells, and then there's a little star of Bethlehem in the center, if you remember doing that. All right, guys, that's it for notes today. Please share your notes with me at Fabian at calvaryknights5.org, and that should get you an easy 10 out of 10 for your next science grade. Have a great week, kids. See you later. Bye.